Okay, it's been over a month, so let's give you some updated Dynasty wide receiver rankings. We have a like goal of 150 likes, so do us a favor, help us get there. Subscribe if you like Dynasty content, and let's get straight to it. 7 tiers to bring you guys today. Badake and I will try and formulate some sort of coherent list collectively.
Yeah.
In tier 1, for me, been that way for me, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. However you want to rank them, whichever way. Justin Jefferson literally on track to have the best career ever so far. Anything can happen, but I mean, all signs point to him being an all-time great. Jamar Chase, very similar, went and broke Justin Jefferson's rookie records right after him. Whichever way you want them ranked, those are the guys I would have in tier 1.
Yeah, completely agree. Don't have to spend too much time on them. Both JJ and Jamar in tier 1.
Okay, I've done something slightly since the last time that we have talked about our wide receiver rankings. I felt like I wasn't giving enough respect specifically to Garrett Wilson,
Here we go.
CD Lamb, and Jalen Waddle.
Here we go.
So I have personally given them their own tier in tier 2.
Okay.
These are guys who are all super, super young, project to have insane years, have already finished outside of Garrett, top 8 at their position. Garrett Wilson, we project to be an absolute monster this year. I mean, when you think about that offense,
Oh,
right,
my goodness.
and you think about Aaron Rodgers coming over, the amount of volume that we even saw last year with a combination of, Zach Wilson, Mike White, Joe Flacco, and still we had Garrett Wilson seeing a ridiculous amount of the target share.
Right.
I have Garrett Wilson projected to see 159 targets and get almost 1,400 yards this year with Aaron Rodgers. So I think he deserves to be in a tier of his own with these other two guys.
Yeah, look, I completely agree. I don't have them in the tier of their own, obviously, but I do have my tier 2 altogether. I did move Garrett Wilson personally above CD Lamb in my Dynasty ranking, so I think we're on the same page there. The 3 other wide receivers I do have in this tier, which it doesn't really matter for me. We don't really have to structure it this way, but A.J. Brown, Chris Olave, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Those are the next 3 guys.
Those are all the guys that I have right there in tier 3 along with JSN.
Okay, yeah. So that makes sense. I mean, however way we want to structure it doesn't really matter. But yeah, I one of the biggest things I did want to bring coming into this conversation was that I thought maybe you didn't change it, but maybe you have clearly. Garrett Wilson over CMC or over CD Lamb. I mean, Aaron Rodgers has supported phenomenal wide receiver talents consistently in the past, and the chemistry that we've seen. I mean, and this is probably a result of Hard Knocks. But not really.
Maybe.
Everyone loves to raise their rankings, but for me, I think I was always on that edge even before Hard Knocks, even saying I think these guys should be next to each other, and now he's above, which is awesome.
Yeah, I think it's just like when you get this this high in your rankings, like top 5 guys, you really have to nitpick.
Yeah.
And to me, a nitpick is having at least 2 years with Aaron Rodgers versus 2 years with Dak Prescott. I still think Dak is good. He will support CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb was a top 5 wide receiver last year. But give me Aaron Rodgers, the guy who has made multiple number 1 wide receivers in fantasy before. And I would argue that there's less. I know people are all about Allen Lazard, Mecole Hardman. I think there's less target competition in New York than there is in Dallas. I think Brandon Cooks is going to demand some targets. Same with Michael Gallup, second year after that recovery. So you have to nitpick. But either way, like it's not like if I have CeeDee Lamb, someone sends me Garrett Wilson, I have to also give them a second round pick. Like, no, I'm not doing that. Like they're so close. They're interchangeable for me. But again, just nitpicking. And I feel like if you're planning out your dynasty team more than 3 years into the future, you're just burning your buy-ins anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, so those 2 guys, honestly, the more I think about it, probably like they should probably be in a tier completely on their own. Waddle, AJ Brown, Chris Olave, Amon-Ra. You could put those guys all into tier 2. I'm just trying to create some sort of significant respect, I guess, for them. And I feel like that's the way we do it. But
makes sense.
But yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
Anything you want to talk about these tier 3 guys?
I,
Anyone you want to add?
Is this okay? So you do. I have Devonta Smith in my tier. Like, obviously, our tiers are structured a little bit differently, but other
Sure.
players that I would personally advocate for to be in the tier 3 would probably just be two players. Will be Devonta Smith and T Higgins. I understand Jackson Smith and Jigba being there for you. He's technically in my tier 4. Wherever Jackson Smith and Jigba is, Quentin Johnson is going to be.
Sure.
Doesn't really. Yeah, for me, doesn't really matter how we structure it. But if there was somebody I did want to advocate for, I think I do want to advocate for Devonta Smith at least being in tier 3. What he did this past year, and I say this all the time, I wish I was more bullish on him. Wide receiver 9, averaging 15.5 fantasy points. Over 130 plus targets this past year. I think this team just gets better. And I think Devonta Smith can easily still be a top 10 wide receiver coming into this year, and I would say in the next 2 years. And honestly, with the history of A.J. Brown's quote-unquote injury, missing 4 to 5 games, I think that can potentially help him maybe in the future. Not projecting that. I'm not hoping that happens, but with the history of A.J. Brown, I think we always kind of expect him to miss 4 to 5 games, where if I'm not mistaken, this past year was his first season his first season in career playing all 17 games, probably outside of his
he's had a
rookie
lot
year.
of knee issues in the past for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's fair. Like, look, so if we're both going to advocate for one person to be added, mine would be JSN.
Yeah.
And would you choose Devonta or T then?
I would choose Devonta, yeah.
I think that makes sense. Devonta Smith from week 2 onwards was the wide receiver 7. AJ Brown from week 2 onwards was a wide receiver 6. Now, on a per game basis, AJ Brown was clearing a full point extra than Devonta Smith, but you're getting very similar production from these two players. And I actually found it super interesting when I statted out the Eagles this year, how close these guys were in my projections. I mean, like we literally said that from week 2 onwards, that's a 17-week sample. And there's only one difference between them as fantasy finishes. But I gave AJ Brown 26% of the target share and Devonta about 25%. But there's a real chance that Devonta could end up being the more valuable guy this year if an injury were to occur. So yeah, I'm fine with that as well.
Yeah, agreed. Completely agree.
Okay, T Higgins, the start of tier 4. Then I would also have Drake London here, who looked pretty good with Desmond Ridder in preseason. Try not to take too much away from that. But he did look good. Ridder, at least at this moment, looks competent. Yes. I think the funny thing is, though, if you watch the Falcons preseason game and then you watch the Eagles with Marcus Mariota playing,
oh my goodness,
all the validation I needed for, always loving Kyle Pitts and saying it was a quarterback play,
Yeah.
So
definitely could be it.
You can't get worse than what Marcus Mariota gave you last year.
Yeah, and I'm really believing in Desmond Ridder coming into this year. So I have Drake London here as well in tier 4.
Okay, I also have a couple of veterans, Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs. If you're in a win now, roster win now window, these are guys that you definitely want on your team. If you're not, you probably don't want to build around them too long term. They'll probably still be good for a couple years. And then DK Metcalf is the last wide receiver I would have in this tier 4.
Okay, so the difference here with me is that I actually have DK one tier down, and obviously I have Quentin in the tier 4. I have Jackson Smith and Jigba and Quentin in tier 4 in my rankings. Okay. It's for me, once again, projecting what Quentin's going to be. He had a bad, obviously, and take preseason with a grain of salt, but the way they're utilizing him, getting him into space, whether it's with the 2s, the 3s, the 1s, I think that's exactly how you're going to utilize him coming into this year. Probably not projecting to be a massive fantasy relevant wide receiver, but once Keenan Allen or Mike Williams is no longer on this team, Quentin Johnson, I think, is going to be easily a top 10, top 15 wide receiver we're going to be drafting in Dynasty, especially being paired up with Justin Herbert there. So, and DK still has, obviously, Jackson Smith and Jigba. At this very moment has Tyler Lockett, and I'm not saying that he is not better or he is not as good as Quentin Johnston, but I think I'm projecting what Quentin is going to be and how high I have him you know. So
I would be fine to put Quentin there to meet you in the middle, just have him there for you. But I here's what I'll say. I was really surprised statting out the Chargers and looking at the possibility of 3,000-yard receivers.
Gosh,
I'm not saying
wild.
It will happen. I'm not saying it will happen.
Do you have?
I'm saying it's a possibility.
Okay.
I have Quentin statted out around 900 yards.
Okay,
but I think context is important there. Kellen Moore coming over from the Cowboys.
Mm-hmm.
The team that I have ranked number 1 in pass attempts projected this year, the Los Angeles Chargers.
Come on, baby.
To me, why would they not be at least top 5? I mean, they have been already in previous years. You add Kellen Moore. Think about it. Your running back is not efficient on the ground. He is great in the air. So you're going to pass the ball to him a lot. You added a first-round wide receiver. You have 2 studs in Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. Here's what I will say. If Keenan and Mike both stay healthy, I don't think we see like a Quentin like league-winning year as a rookie, but I still think we see a very, very good year. And I've still given like Josh Palmer, for example, 79 targets. Like I think this team is going to be passing the ball a ton. They're probably the team with the biggest discrepancy in passing plays versus rushing plays for me. I have them throwing the ball 64% of the time this year. Justin Herbert's, I think, just going to be absolutely unleashed. 3 really great wide receivers to, in that treasure chest of his. So I'm happy to put Johnston there. The only reason I don't love it is because I really feel like Johnston and Jordan Addison should be right by each other.
That's fair. And that is my first player in my tier 5. So I'm happy to put him in tier 4, which makes sense. Yeah, I think that makes sense to have both of those guys together.
Yeah, I wasn't quite ready to put them in tier 4 with these names myself. But if we want to meet in the middle, if you get to add Quentin, I guess I'll advocate and add Jordan Addison there.
Yeah.
Kind of similar when it comes to a team that is going to pass the ball a ton.
Yeah.
Last year, this first year, by the way, with Kevin O'Connell as a head coach, only 3 teams passed the ball more than the Minnesota Vikings. And what have they done this offseason? They got rid of their franchise running back in Dalvin Cook. Mm-hmm. They drafted a first-round wide receiver when defense was a huge need. Last year, only the Lions gave up more passing yards or more offensive yards to opposing offenses. And now you add a first-round wide receiver in Jordan Addison, ultra talent, former Biletnikoff winner, put up huge numbers at Pittsburgh and USC. I have Jordan Addison having a slightly better year this year than Quentin Johnston myself. I have him over 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns, and around 120 targets or so. So, big fan of Jordan Addison this year. I think he's going to dominate.
Yeah, I love that. I love that tier. All right. I mean, I can start off my tier 5 if you like.
Sure.
I would say also a significantly big tier. I have Jerry Jeudy in this tier. I also have Christian Watson in this tier. I'm not sure where you have him. I also have Jahan Dotson in this tier. Zay Flowers, Jamison Williams in this tier.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And that's kind of how I currently have it. I've been tossing up between one more player in this tier that is right on my edge of my tier 6, and that is currently DJ Moore.
Okay. Gotcha.
I know probably one of the biggest guys I haven't said is probably Treylon Burks.
Yes.
He's still within my top 30. I just think I feel more confident in the situations of each and every one of those wide receivers in my tier 5 right now over Treylon.
I'm going to have to advocate for Treylon Burks.
Sure.
He would, for me, be the first player in tier 5.
Okay.
If he was like the last player for me, maybe we could, agree and put him down. But I'd have to advocate for him here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even with DeAndre Hopkins in town, I think that only helps Treylon Burks, and all signs are pointing towards him having a breakout year. What I would say is there's a couple things I might change myself. Like at the moment, Christian Watson, Jahan Dotson, Zay Flowers. I really struggle to rank those guys. I really, really struggle because I am feeling like Zay Flowers is the better wide receiver of all 3, and I love Jahan Dotson.
Yeah, I hear you.
And when I look at the future, OBJ's not going to play for much longer.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel pretty confident projecting Zay Flowers over Rashad Bateman, even though I do love Rashad Bateman.
Yeah.
I don't see Jahan Dotson overtaking Terry. I think they could meet each other, but I don't see him overtaking him. And then with Christian Watson, it feels just like the vibes are really, really weird through preseason.
I would agree there.
And I don't want to put too much stock into preseason, but the vibes are really hard to read because Romeo Doubs looks like the favorite target. Then it looks like Luke Musgrave. Then it looks like Jaden Reed. And then it looks like Christian Watson. And the reason we all love Watson is because we think he will be the unquestioned number one. If he has the same target share as like a Romeo Doubs this year, he will disappoint us.
Yeah.
There's no Aaron Rodgers in town, so you're not going to have the same touchdown efficiency. I still think he will be the number one on this team. I'm still projecting him to be the number one on this team. And I'm not going to put too much stock into preseason games or targets or anything. But again, you want to find like the small nitpick reasons to put someone over someone else, and that's kind of what I'm leaning towards at the moment.
Yeah, look, and I would completely agree. I know we had this a quick conversation on our live stream about Musgrave, Dobbs, Reed over Watson. At least once again, preseason, take it with a grain of salt. But if that is really going to be the trend throughout the season, where can Christian Watson really finish if he is, according to what we just said and what we're seeing in preseason, the fourth target on this team?
Well, I don't think he'll be the fourth target. I just want to be very, very clear.
Yes, I don't think that. I don't think he'll be the fourth target either. But I'm saying if that is the worst case scenario, then that is really hard to project. I would agree Zay Flowers over at this very moment. Yeah, we could probably even move Christian Watson. I feel a lot more confident in what I've seen so far with Sam Howell and Jahan Dotson. Obviously, as we're recording this, I think they're also playing right now. So yeah, I definitely see opportunities with all these guys kind of being there, but that's why they're all in my same tier, because I do have a lot of question marks each and every one. But Zay Flowers, I bought him as a buy low in multiple videos in the past now, because agreed, OBJ is not going to be there. What the hell is going to happen with Rashad Bateman? We all know the number one target is Mark Andrews, but the number one wide receiver can easily be Zay Flowers coming into this year.
Yeah, I mean, Zay Flowers feels like Jahan Dotson last year. I feel like all last year we were screaming like, do not let Jahan Dotson out of the first round of your rookie drafts. Yeah. I know that you might not like his profile as much. You don't like the school that he went to. You don't like that he declared a little bit late. You don't like the offense that he's in. Mm-hmm. Do not let him fall. Bet on the talent. We said the same thing for Zay Flowers, and somehow he still was going in the second round in some drafts.
Yep.
Here's what I'll say. I just want to clarify. I do think Christian Watson will be the number one option on his team. I do believe that. But I don't think it's going to be like 10% difference in target share between him and Dobbs. Mm-hmm. I think it'll be more like 5%, and that might lead to some question marks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine with Jameson Williams there. I don't have DJ Moore in this tier myself.
Yeah,
but happy to
he
meet
was
you
on
there.
He was on the edge for me. I just wanted to have a quick conversation.
Okay.
I'm seeing and getting more confident in DJ Moore. Once again, preseason, take with a grain of salt, but the way they're going to be utilizing, the step that I believe Justin Fields is going to take, I think has to also be, parallel to the way I should be envisioning DJ Moore coming into this year.
Right.
I think they should both be, moving up in rankings. Sure. I think coming into at the end of next year, we're going to be having conversations of maybe DJ Moore being, in tier 4 potentially, being a top 20 wide receiver, which he has been in the past, which we thought was way too much, way too early. But I think right now he is probably one of the best values in dynasty drafts and even in your redraft leagues coming into this year so far.
Yeah, he could be. Okay, let's go through tier 6 and tier 7, I'd say like relatively quickly.
Yeah.
I got Brandon Ayuk here, who honestly, that's why I feel a little bit icky about having like Jameson Williams and DJ Moore over him. Because I kind of feel like he's more deserving of being in tier 6.
Okay.
But I have Jameson and DJ both in tier 5 at this moment.
That's fine.
Still all in on Jameson, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm like 10 spots higher than the community rankings, but just feels wrong for me to not have Brandon Ayuk ahead of them. But
yeah, that's fair.
For the sake of time, we'll leave him there. Calvin Ridley I would have here.
Mm-hmm.
Then I would have a couple veterans, Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams. I know they're old, but similar to Tyreek and Stephon Diggs, they're not as old as those guys. But if you're trying to compete, or they're not as young as those guys, but if you're trying to compete right now, you definitely want those players on your squad. Terry McLaurin I would have here. George Pickens I would also have here in this tier. Who, man, the beat reports are not stopping. The drumbeat is really loud for George Pickens. We could be looking at a breakout season this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everything that we've seen from Kenny Pickett, I've been a massive advocate of Kenny, George, Deontay, every single one of these targets in this offense. So, yeah, I do agree. George Pickens in my tier 6. One of the hardest things for me is to rank these veterans, okay? Yeah. I think if I'm in a dynasty startup every single time, I'm taking multiple people over Devontae Adams potentially. I would say specifically Cooper Kupp. I think Devontae Adams can go to another team and still play another 2-3 years. Cooper Kupp, I think this could be, second to last year of his career when it comes down to the injuries he's been facing. What about the quarterback play with Matthew Stafford?
Sure.
So I do have 2 other players in this tier.
Okay.
I have Hollywood Brown, and I also have Elijah Moore. Obviously, we probably see that significantly different. I like Hollywood Brown coming into this year, not this year, but as a whole, with Kyler Murray, and I think he's another phenomenal value in dynasty startups. I mean, I think I got him in our mock draft in the 7th round, if I'm not mistaken, this past week. Or 2 weeks ago now. So I love that. And obviously, you know how much I love Elijah Moore. I feel with the projections that I have and the way I believe Elijah Moore is going to pan out this year with Deshaun Watson, I think he can easily be somebody we're going to be taking maybe next year or ahead of Devontae Adams, ahead of Cooper Kupp, ahead of Terry. And that is a big, big if. Big projection. But obviously, you guys know how I am. I've been bold on Elijah Moore coming into the 2023 season.
Yeah, Elijah Moore is a player that I like. I like his talent. He would be at the end of my tier 7 personally.
That's fair. Yeah.
But yeah, I'd be happy to give it to you. Obviously, the reports are good out of camp. I've given him around 20% of the targets in my projection for the Cleveland offense, and he still isn't finishing inside my top 35 when I look at when I look at how it's all panning out for me in my projections. But I think he's a very talented player, and he's absolutely someone that could break any sort of mold or projection if the connection is what we think it is. But
yeah.
Okay, so we're already over, I think, 30 wide receivers anyway.
Mm-hmm.
This video is called Top 30. So why don't we just I'll just list a bunch of names that you could have in your top 30. Okay. And there's in tier 6, to be honest, guys, you could probably have 20 names in your tier 6.
Absolutely.
Genuinely. There's going to be people who are angry that certain people are too low or whatever. But so Deebo Samuel.
Yep.
You could have in there Michael Pittman, Chris Godwin,
yep.
Amari Cooper, who I actually have ranked ahead of Elijah Moore myself, but
that's fair.
I can see where you're coming from. Deontay Johnson, Christian Kirk. You could even chuck in a Sky Moore there, Rashad Bateman and DeAndre Hopkins if you wanted. But anyway, I just wanted to say there will be names that people are annoyed about that we don't have inside the top 30. At the end of the day, there's 45 names that you could put in the top 30,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think however way it's going to pan out coming into this year, obviously we'll do another one of these in a month or so, maybe in week 6 or 7 of the season, and let you guys know how we're kind of panning out going into the dynasty season, or dynasty off season, I guess you can say. But yeah, completely agree with each and every one of those guys in tier 7.
Okay, well, that is it for today. I guess the only name that we haven't talked about is Jameson Williams, and I'll just quickly say that if you were in on Jameson Williams before preseason action, before the injury, I don't see a reason for you to be out on him, because we knew he was going to miss 6 weeks anyway, so he has plenty of time to recover from. I see the talent, and in that first game that he played, I felt like outside of that one pass that he dropped, which I don't think we should put too much stock into drops, the quarterback play was awful. I felt like the quarterback play was really, really rough.
Yeah, absolutely.
Still a player that I think has immense talent and that I am super comfortable to bet on in a trade. I have him, I think, 10 spots higher than keep, trade, cut in my rankings.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. I love J-Mo. I mean, I just bought a video of a buy low opportunity, I'll say 2 weeks ago now, about Jameson Williams, about everything that was happening, especially with the injuries, especially with the drops. Is a good buy opportunity right now, probably getting for less than a second. So completely agree. Or less than a first,
probably
excuse
for
me.
a second. We're seeing
less than a first, I meant to say.
We're seeing people trading for a second round pick. I'm
Yeah.
like, how do you imagine getting more value in a dynasty rookie draft than Jameson Williams in the second round, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
I can't really wrap my head around that. It's really strange to me.
Yeah, it's a tough one. But yeah, love J-Mo, love what I saw, the little glimpse. And I mean, he kind of, we probably have a different conversation if he was injured, was going to miss 3 games and didn't get suspended, right? Like, I wonder how even further he would have fell coming into that as well. So good opportunity to buy low on J-Mo.
All right, that is it today. Thanks for watching, guys. Drop a like, and we'll see you in the next one. All of it. Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, L-A-N-D, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.
It's so easy, even your grandma could scan that QR code right there.